welcome to Frequelize This. We're doing another in our series on why is this the album everybody knows. I'm Dave. With me is John and Rich. And today we're going to take a look at Queensrÿche. You know, if you're going to know an album by Queensrÿche, it's probably going to be this one. Oh, let's see, make sure that comes in right. So you're gonna know Empire. This was triple platinum in the US, came out in 1990. They sold a ton of these albums, really on the strength of some of the kind of the singles that they put out. So you got Silent Lucidity, which is gorgeous ballad. Now, I will say I'm not the biggest super fan of metal bands doing the ballad thing. Some of the time it comes off just really cheesy. Silent Lucidity does it well. Queensrÿche does the ballad here quite well. The one challenge to this is that as they became known for this, that was kind of the expectation. And they're really functionally, they're kind of, you would put them in a kind of a prog metal band because they have a lot of deeper musicality to them than kind of the prototypical 80s or just late 80s into the 90s hair metal. They get lumped in there on occasion, especially if you went back in their earlier catalog, you kind of could get a sense of that, but there's a lot more to them than that. But you got Silent Lucidity, Jet City Woman, a little more up tempo to it. Jeff Tate is a phenomenal singer and just lets it rip with there. You've got Empire, the title track, which is fantastic. And then The Best I Can is another one that you're probably going to be somewhat familiar with out of that album. Now, what sets up the success of Empire is a much proggier approach in doing a concept album just prior with this one, Operation Mindcrime, not to be confused with Jeff Tate's Operation Mindcrime Band, in which he released three sort of follow-up. It's kind of it was a 3-album concept album thing. He went from going over the top to going way over the top.
Yeah. Were they supposed to be sequels?
Well, no, because you had the sequel in Operation Mindcrime 2, which Queensrÿche did and shouldn't have. There's this interesting period where they've got I'll say it this way, they bookend things. So you have with Empire and Operation Mindcrime, that's where they're kind of at their commercial peak. They're also artistically doing the music really well. The prior 2 albums, I think, are solid. Rage for Order, we'll talk about that momentarily. The Warning, not as strong. They're still kind of getting together. They had an EP prior to that. But you also, I'm going to get into it in a little bit, but the last couple of albums that they've put out have been really solid. But you also have this weird period in between where they're doing Tribe is okay, Operation Mindcrime 2, which is a travesty. They did a decent album of covers called Take Cover. It might not have been a wise name for the thing, but okay. But then you get the weird period, and I'm just going to go there right now. You get the weird period where Jeff Tate is out of the band, but he wants to hang on to the Queensrÿche name. So in 2013, 2 Queensrÿche albums get released by 2 different Queensrÿches. So you have a Jeff Tate version, and then you have the guys who just got rid of Jeff Tate, and they each put out an album. And what they were doing is they were basically trying to lay claim to the name of the band. And okay, and I'll just own this. So Jeff Tate's, his version of it, it's called Frequency Unknown. Have fun with the fact that well, it ends up being literally an FU, which is what he's doing with Frequency Unknown.
Got it.
this is what's going on. It's not a great period. It actually, that the Queensrÿche album of the proper band at this point, and the band that actually carries on with the name, weird backstory stuff here. It's a self-titled at this point, and it actually sets up what I think is their really strong current productive period. Anyway, so back to Operation Mindcrime, the one that's worth listening to. This jumps back. So we were in 90 for Empire. So 2 years prior in 88. Mindcrime was 50, reached number 50 on the charts in the US, was a platinum selling album. But again, it's that peak prog metalness of a concept album. As you're telling the story of, what's this, like a nurse and an assassin and all of this intrigue, and is there mind control going on? And it's what a prog band does. And this is their stepping out and really planting the flag and saying, we're a prog metal band. And there's an intelligence to it. If you're kind of moving from Empire into Operation Mindcrime, you're going to look for songs like Eyes of a Stranger that really carries kind of that strong Jeff Tate vocal capacity. I mean, he is, there's those few singers, like Jeff Tate is one of them, Bruce Dickinson's another one. Why is my brain not working? Rob Halford's another one, where they just have this operatic level capacity with their vocal performance. So if you're enjoying that with the kind of the ballad side of Empire, Eyes of a Stranger, or I Don't Believe in Love are going to be kind of the natural pieces within Operation Mindcrime that you'll kind of, as a starter point, to jump in there. Other great songs within that, Revolution Calling kind of kicks things into a bit of a stronger gear than kind of the ballad end of things. Sweet Sister Mary is the closest thing we get within Operation Mindcrime to kind of an epic, the kind of that prog epic kind of a thing. It's a little over 10 minutes. Solid, great, kind of, I don't know, is it kind of the prog metal version of an epic, if you will. Anything you guys want to throw in on kind of those two initial, the more popularly known albums?
Well, the one thing that I don't think Queensrÿche gets enough credit for with Operation Mindcrime is they did something that was, at 1988, profoundly uncool in the music industry. Nobody was even touching a concept album in 1988. And if you did, you were going to be mocked by the critics. You were going to be savaged by the critics.
You said savaged.
I was thank you. That was well done.
The other band that was doing it was Sabotage.
Yes, exactly. But
nobody
didn't hear about Sabotage unless you were way into the scene. And so, but this one, I mean, casual fans knew that Operation Mindcrime was around and Queensrÿche was this band. But it also took you by surprise, because if you knew, and I'm sure Dave will probably get into this earlier stuff, you remember when they were doing stuff like Queen of the Reich in like 1984, 1985. And you would hear Operation Mindcrime on that, like, wait, same band, right? How? Well, this also begs the question then, because this is, when I say a concept album, I mean a concept album that tells a cohesive story. So I will argue that your classic triad Metallica album, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Just for All, those are all concept albums because they're all songs built around a singular theme. But Operation Mindcrime actually takes it one step further and tells a story.
Yeah, I think that's when it gets called a rock opera.
Yeah,
kind of like you could say that about The Wall maybe, but then you wouldn't necessarily say that about like Dark Side of the Moon or Aqualung.
Right. Well, and then again with The Wall, if you're using that as a comparison, there's a 9-year gap there. So, because The Wall came out in 78, 79. So
right.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing to me how excellent both of those albums are, and they are the two most popular Queensrÿche albums, Operation Mindcrime and Empire. But oh my goodness, that's almost two different bands right there. I mean, they're very different experiences. Mm-hmm. And then Rich, you mentioned that earlier stuff, right? Like Queen of the Reich, and that's a whole different sounding band. There might be hints, of what we're going to get in Mindcrime, but compare Empire to that, To me, it's very different. I'm such a huge fan of both of those albums. Dave, what are are there some analogs between those two albums? I just said that to me they sound like very different albums, but like how did they go from Mindcrime to Empire?
I know it's an
in a songwriting sense.
Yeah, I think what was happening there, because I came in as a fan with the Operation Mindcrime. I remember seeing them at the Long Beach Arena, and it was a fantastic show. And I was actually, it was interesting. It took me a little bit when Empire came out to adjust to it, because I felt like they throttled things back. And I think there was a little bit of a sense of, they had tasted a bit of success, and you probably have label people whispering in their ears, kind of saying, hey, do a little bit of the kind of the hair metal ballad thing. And I think there's where, as much as I've grown to love and really enjoy Empire, and especially Silent Lucidity, beautiful song. There was a period where that song drove me nuts, because it felt like it was too much of a step back from kind of the metal side that they had in Operation Mindcrime. And so I think my guess is going to be that there's a lot of that influence going on, and it really it paid off for them. I mean, it was a huge success. But I'm actually going to suggest, and this will actually transition to my next thought here, they toured the crap out of Empire. And they were going for years. And it's 94 when they put out their next album. And they put out this one. Oh, keep doing that. Promised Land. Band was not getting along with themselves. I think they were kind of hungover from their success. It's still a really solid album. Interestingly enough, this is a weird one. So Empire sold better. I mean, they're both platinum albums. Promised Land ends up being number 3 album briefly in the US. It actually hits a higher chart point, but briefer. It doesn't sustain. They're not able to keep it going in the same way. But I think there's ways in which I actually come back to Promised Land more often than I do Empire. And you have kind of fun songs like I Am I, which is just, it's so much fun. They have this fun little kind of digital stutter at one point in it, which kind of gets it's kind of a fun little flavor to it. I think they were trying to get away from the Silent Lucidity. I think there was an element to which they're pushing back from it. They did have Bridge, which is kind of more of the ballad. You kind of have kind of this storytelling in within the one song, dealing with kind of the relationship between a father and a son, and it's really poignant. I think that's kind of the quick close connection point that you can make between kind of a Silent Lucidity, and you get Bridge coming in there. Was that the 5th song on the album there? Another one that's similar in that ballady sort of a sense is Someone Else. I actually think that would have been a strong initial single for the album. But in fact, I could have been a direction they could have gone with it, might have been stronger. It's kind of one of those things where Promised Land comes out of the gate strong and then doesn't carry through. And I think the way albums were received at the time through radio play and singles, and which one, the selection of singles really helped make or break an album. And I think that's one of the reasons why Empire did so well, is they structured the release of the singles really well. You also have on there elements that were missing that are pulling a little bit back to their earlier albums. So they have some heavier and darker, a little more proggy stuff in Damaged. And then you have the title track of Promised Land, and then Disconnected, which kind of take it, there's a darker mood to them. It's a little subject matter wise. It gets, not that they were light in their subject matter really anytime. But it digs deeper at that point. And I think there's a way in which Promised Land can be a richer album to some degree, but it didn't attain or didn't hang on to the same level of success that Empire did. And so for a lot of people, if they really enjoyed Empire after Promised Land, they kind of forgot about them. Now, the hard part is after Promised Land came Q2K, which not a great album title. Again, it was kind of like, why are we doing this? What was Q2K in 99? So of course we have to get a reference to, Y2K, and it just, I think from a marketing standpoint, they just started off there. And honestly, that's not one that I come back to and really jump in a lot. I will say, hopping back to kind of what they were doing prior, Rage for Order sets the stage, I think, for what they do in Operation Mindcrime. I mean, there's some pieces there that feel like they're heading in that direction. It was a gold album, came out in '86. You have kind of the hard driving song in Walk in the Shadows. Again, strong, good prog metal feel. It really gets, again, it's the Jeff Tate vocal, it's the Chris DeGarmo on guitar just ripping it up. You have a ballad there, so you've got a little bit of a feel for this. I Dream in Infrared, which, good ballad, kind of gets forgotten, but I think if you enjoyed the kind of the ballady side of Empire, I Dream in Infrared would be worth kind of taking a look at. And then you get a song like Gonna Get Too Close to You, kind of a mid-tempo feel. It kind of almost feels like there's more power to what they're going to be doing, but they're just like, it almost feels like they're holding back. It just kind of has this kind of caged animal kind of a feel where there could be so much more going on. And the Warning, not nearly as strong of an album, but they do have another. If you're getting into that, you've got the song The Warning, it's the title track, solid song, and Take Hold of the Flame, which is kind of their early try at doing a ballad. But not to go into them in great depth, but I will kind of walk through like their the kind of the last two albums. You've got The Verdict, they've got Todd De La Torre now as their lead singer, and then this is the most recent one, Digital Noise Alliance. These are as solid right now as I think anything they were doing early on. So really worthwhile. There's kind of an odd combination. I look at Queensrÿche and I think there's variance, and I can see what you're saying, John, when there's kind of a difference where there's, where you say even between Empire and Operation Mindcrime, they feel like different albums. There's still there's a consistent through line, whether it's originally with Jeff Tate or the current run with De La Torre. You have strong vocals, you have excellent guitar work, and you just kind of have this drivingness to the songs. So even when they step back and do a ballad, it's not just sitting there. There's still kind of a push feel that's going on. What kind of stuff are you guys catching? Where have I dropped the ball here?
Now, you done pretty thorough. I mean, just I'm glad you mentioned the Q2K thing, just because I really think that obviously it's aged poorly, that those references, and any record that tries to capture the zeitgeist of the moment, that on the nose sets themselves up for failure. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, it's different than if you just make a reference in passing that may not be relevant to the next generation, but a whole album, you look at that and go, oh, this looks corny. It starts aging like milk, like almost within a year.
Dovetailing off of that, Rich, I think there's kind of something weird that was going on with the band. Is you kind of, as I'm mentioning before with Promised Land, they're kind of coming out of their big peak success, and I think they kind of got tired of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the Now Frontier is a better album than Q2K was.
Yeah.
But still not to the same level. And I think they've gotten back to a better level. So I would actually argue that as much as I really loved Jeff Tate in the band, I love the fact that he's not in it currently. And I think we're actually getting better music out of Jeff by not being in Queensrÿche and doing other side projects. And I think we're getting better stuff out of Queensrÿche with a new lead singer.
All right. That makes sense. Do you think that's just because that tension is not there?
I don't think they could deal with each other anymore. And I honestly think just you get in that situation where creatively you can't work with each other anymore.
Yeah.
And I think there was an element to which Jeff was trying to recapture the success of Operation Mindcrime, and I think he probably forced the issue too much with kind of the sequel album. And to some degree, I would say doing the band Operation Mindcrime, which is kind of I don't know if you want to call it a solo album that he called a band. He put a band together. Mm-hmm. It's a Jeff Tate project. Those are actually stronger than the sequel album. They're not as strong as kind of the most current Queensrÿche work that's going on right now, but at least I think he got a little better creativity going on his own, untethered to the band again.
That makes sense.
I was at that Long Beach Arena show, and you know what was so significant to me that stood out there was they're touring Empire, and they did a 2-set show. There was an opening act even as well. That was a nice long evening. But the first set of their show was 10 of the 11 tracks off of Empire. They played 10 of the 11 tracks off of Empire. Then they took a break, and then they came back and did the entirety of Operation Mindcrime.
I remember that.
And they weren't doing that when they were touring for Operation Mindcrime. In 1980, I'll admit that I just looked this up. In 1988, they were opening for Metallica, and they were playing like a 10-song set. And it included, Dave, one of the power ballad that you mentioned. What was that one?
Take Hold of the Flame?
Yeah, it was that one. So they were doing like this 10-song set where 8 of the songs, I think, were from Mindcrime. And then they had like a couple earlier ones. And then in 1989, they were headlining, but even then they were playing an abbreviated Operation Mindcrime along with some of their older stuff. So that just goes to show they knew what their fans wanted to hear, right? And I thought that was such a great move to embrace the new fans in such a bold way, to say,
yeah,
we're gonna play 10/11ths of our new album. Who does that? I don't remember.
Back then, nobody.
Yeah, I don't remember hearing anything older, anything else other than those 2 albums on that show. I didn't look up the set list for those shows right now, but I don't remember any, Queen of the Reich or Prophecy or Rage for Order. So that's just such a bold move to embrace your new fans by playing almost the entirety of the album that's capturing everyone's current attention, taking a break and coming back out and playing the album that all of your diehard fans want to hear. Just such a cool thing that they did. What's the Queensrÿche album after Empire that maybe does the best job harkening back to the feel of Empire?
As whole albums, I think they walked away from like when I was saying that they downshifted kind of in the tempo and kind of settled into much more of a kind of ballad driven. I think Empire is the only time they really did that as consistently. And at least as I'm recalling, they're kind of they kind of rock a little bit harder. They kind of have a stronger metal edge, and so to some degree, what you're trying to find within, you can find, so like, you get like a Jet City Woman. I mean, there's a little more of a driving force to it. And I kind of see that out of Empire as the bridge into the rest of their catalog. If you enjoyed the Silent Lucidity and you can make the connection point between that and Jet City Woman and kind of enjoy a little more of the up tempo, you're going to find your way into more of what they do in the bigger picture, in the broader stroke of their catalog.
Cool. All right. Well, we're pretty far along into the show. Throw us a couple of your favorite post-Empire albums that we need to make sure we check out.
So post-Empire, Promised Land to me was one of the strongest. And I'm going to say I'm still, like, even though I'm not going to walk through and give you a bunch of the song titles and so forth, but the last two Queensrÿche albums, The Verdict and Digital Noise Alliance, are both solid and are giving you a good sense of where the band is currently and the direction they're going. And I think musicality, solid. They're as strong as ever, and just kind of doing some of the best music I think they've done. But you do, to some degree, you have to come into it with an appreciation for the kind of the metal side of what they were doing in Empire.
Okay, awesome. And I think it's worth noting that the current vocalist, Todd Latour, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is the only other vocalist, which is worth noting in a situation like this, because Jeff Tate was such a strong presence. It's almost similar to Lawrence, I'm not going to get his last name, that replaced Dennis DeYoung in Styx. He's the new kid, but he's been in Styx for 20 years. At least more, maybe more, 99 maybe, and sounds just like Dennis DeYoung. So Todd does a great job of pulling off Jeff Tate's vocals, because Jeff Tate is unique. You always know when you're hearing Jeff Tate.
Right.
And I found I don't know if I've heard The Verdict, but I definitely enjoyed the latest one. I definitely was like, yes, this is a proper Queensrÿche album. He's been in the band 10 years now. He needs to, if he isn't already, like, I'm not the biggest Queensrÿche fan, so maybe he is getting this, but if he isn't getting it, he needs to get the respect of, he is the lead singer of a really good band called Queensrÿche, for sure.
You know, I think where the fan base is at this point is, I don't think anybody's looking back and looking for some sort of a reunion tour. I also don't think you should expect the level of animosity that they parted under. That's not going to happen. And you know, Jeff Tate has got his current band. I think he's done 2 albums under the title of Sweet Oblivion now. So that's kind of his thing at the moment. And the current incarnation of Queensrÿche is solid, and they're cranking out good stuff. So that was our quick tour through Queensrÿche. Hope that gives you some fuel and interest into what you can dig into, and we'll see you next time.